They're aiming to get 100% controllability over AI voices, and especially emotions and intonation.
Hey friends, Slater Pod is back. Hi Esther.
Hi Florian.
All right, you're recording this from our office again, right?
That's right, yep.
The London office, where we are going on in May 23rd, end of May, for SlaterCon London. I'll share a bit about the agenda, the amazing agenda we put together in a second. But first, today, Esther, we're going to talk about our Language Service Provider Index, which was published about a couple of weeks ago, right?
I think it was as long ago as 1 month.
Long ago as 1 month. It's outdated.
Yeah, it's been a while.
It's outdated. Let's do it all again. Yeah, it's crazy, the newspaper. And we haven't recorded one of these episodes
in about 6 weeks.
In about 6 weeks. So, oh my God, we have to come back to this. So LSPI published. We also want to talk about an unexpected gift in California. The fact that McKinsey says that hiring translators is getting easier. You're going to walk us through a M&A and funding update, and want to just briefly jump into reactions on Trump's EO. Also want to talk about some of the results of our 2025 localization buyer survey, and want to end on AI dubbing news from Amazon and YouTube, which may impact this podcast going forward. You may be able to enjoy this podcast in all kinds of languages. No, I'm worried about running this through AI dubbing on YouTube, no matter the tech. All right, but first, Esther, we have an amazing agenda now, almost complete for London. Remind us again, where is it and when is it happening?
It's at the Nobu Hotel, same fantastic venue that we went to last year. So very excited to go back there. And yeah, happening on Friday, the 23rd of May, with, of course, the welcome reception the day before on the 22nd.
Great venue. Please register. It's going to be an amazing conference, because we have on the agenda Benjamin Faz, CEO of RWS Group. We have an investor panel put together now by with participation from Boost Capital Partners and Alchemia Capital. That's Ignacio Monero and Simona Cremonini joining us. We have Buket Vidinilisan from Google, Senior Program Manager from Google Developer Studio, giving a presentation. Very excited about that. Then we have a panel with Georg L, CEO of Phrase, Russell Hayworth, CEO of Aclaro. And I'm not going to go through all the names, because otherwise it's going to take up all the podcast. But we have, people on that panel from Braze, Sanity, and then I'll be moderating that. We have a presentation followed that by Wise, the localization team at Wise. We have a panel on AI dubbing and kind of the nuances of speech with AppTech. Then also super exciting, we have the group CEO of Accolade, Bertrand Stalder, joining us as a speaker. And then we have Anna Wyndham moderating a Language AI startup panel. So yeah, that's as good as it gets.
Lots of content there. I think it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah, we actually added one session. We kind of looked at the whole agenda. We felt that it makes sense for us to add one more slot. So it's a fully packed day. The night before, we have BureauWorks hosting the networking reception and or the welcome reception, and the networking reception is going to be hosted by SmartLink. On the day, it's a really, really nice location to also do the networking, because there's kind of a mezzanine floor and you have wide view, and the food, of course. This is the best food ever. Like at the Nobu, they have the best chef. So, all right, join us. Now, Language Service Provider Index. Give us the 5, 6, 7 bullet points, Esther.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it's no longer a hot take, obviously, because as we said, it was published sort of, I don't think five or so weeks ago now, but this is the 2025 Slater Language Service Provider Index that featured more than 200 language service providers, all of whom provided us with their revenues from 2024. So, of course, we analyzed all of the data, all of the entries, and kind of extracted a few high-level insights as well. So yeah, I mean, across all of those companies, 200 plus companies, growth, if you combine it, was more than 6.6%. So that takes the total revenues of index companies up to $8.4 billion US. So, pretty sizable portion of the market that's captured there within our index. But obviously, 6.6%, you might think, oh, that's pretty solid. We would say that, of course, mergers and acquisitions, M&A generally is accounting for most, if not all, of the growth that you're sort of seeing within that.
Yeah, because we're estimating that the industry actually declined in 2024 if you measure it like that. But we measure, what we're looking at here is the revenue that we've indexed in that index, right?
Indexed in the index. Yeah.
Indexed in the index that we measured in the index, not the actual market growth. And so
this is not market growth, of course. Yeah. I mean, and also I want to say, as much as we're aiming to be comprehensive with who we're including in the LSPI, participation is, of course, optional. And there can be an element of self-selection as well. If you haven't done so well, maybe you sit it out for a year, of course.
Yeah. Shout out to everybody who's submitting despite not having to.
Yeah,
having done well.
For sure.
Big shout out.
It's still very, very relevant, I think, and it definitely paints a picture of what's going on within that. So, you have some companies and some niches, some pockets doing extremely well. So, for example, one of the insights that we gathered was that interpreting companies have outperformed text translation companies in 2024. So that definitely comes across from the LSPI, as well as obviously anecdotal and kind of general coverage, I think, from Slator across 2024. So that was another insight. Any thoughts on that particular?
Again, might have been peak interpreting because of the Trump EO. Let's see. I mean, it's not going to get easier especially in the US. I mean, a lot of this is driven by US interpreting, and now with Trump's executive order, probably going to be a tougher environment this year and next year, and let's see how it goes beyond that. So we might have seen peak interpreting.
Peak interpreting, yeah. And I mean, it was definitely a challenging environment in 24. That for sure comes across. One area that we think did outperform were the LSPs that are part of a bigger conglomerate. So those that are divisions within a larger company. So, the Language Lines, Hogarth, I'm sure there's other
AMN.
examples as well. AMN, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, I suppose the message here is that, the parent company or sort of that bigger organization can help as sort of backing to drive performance also. Then maybe this comes as no surprise, but one more insight we wanted to share with you is that the fact that 6 of the top 10 LSPs are based in the US. So that's 60% of top 10 are US companies. What we're seeing is that Europe is still remaining more fragmented as a market.
The macro. Just Europe generally is just not doing well in terms of the macroeconomy. It continues to, I'm not sure if bother is the right word, but it's just weird that a single country which now has an official single language. Like a single language country, has 6 out of the top 10 kind of translation language service providers. All right, so do we have one more bullet point here before we move on to an unexpected gift?
Yes. Our final takeaway was the fact that life sciences is pretty prominent in the language service provider index. So 1/5 of all companies in the LSPI said that life sciences was one of their top 3 industries. So that was an optional question that we asked companies, what are your top 3? And those that responded, 20% of them said that life sciences was top. So that remains, of course, a very popular and big market for translation and localization there.
So head over there. It's publicly available, free to use. We put this there as a gift to you on the internets. Another big gift, maybe a little bigger even than the LSPI, not in value,
arguably,
but in dollar terms, that's an incredible story. And we're going to publish this on the day we record this podcast. So it should be out by the time you listen to this. Is a private equity CEO gifted $10 million to launch a new MA in translation program at the California State University, Long Beach. Now, while everyone else is pulling back on, translation programs, or most are, and they're redefining and renaming and relabeling and, expanding and adding all kinds of kind of multilingual communication labels to it, the California State University, Long Beach, is getting this gift. So incredible. So who is this gentleman? His name is Mario Giannini, and he's the Chief Executive Officer of Hamilton Lane. Quick Google search, Hamilton Lane, gigantic private equity company, $130 billion in AUM, as they say in the industry, assets under management. So, it's got to be one of the biggest PE firms in America. And, backdrop, so major boost, of course. This new Masters in Translation Interpreting is opening in the fall 2026. That gentleman, Mario Giannini, has a strong history of support, previously gave millions of dollars for creating the Clorinda Donato Center for Global Romance Languages and Translation Studies. The funds for the $10 million will mostly be used for scholarships for future translators. And they also talk about AI and translation integration, making sure that, they have advanced AI, language model, and data science skills, etc. It's an incredible story. We also spoke, I need to pull up that quote here. We also spoke to the person in charge of this, and they said that the bulk of the gift, will go towards creating scholarships for students who apply to the master's program and are accepted. Go ahead to the article. It's just an incredible story. Like in kind of given the the overall environment, did he have the CEO of one of the largest private equity companies in America donating $10 million to a translation degree program? Incredible. Apparently he, let me pull this up. Apparently he was born in France. He being the CEO, he was born in France to Italian-speaking parents and graduated from Cal State Northridge in 1973 with a BA in English, and has called the California State University system a huge influence. So now it's time to give back. All right, appreciate that, Mr. Giannini. Now, those translators that are graduating, are finding a very competitive job market. Maybe you could tell us. We stumbled across this report by McKinsey, right? What was the name again?
Well, the name of the report is McKinsey State of AI. Yeah.
Okay. So that's kind of this is the third time they published this report. So McKinsey State of AI, third time since 2022. And they've categorized translators in that report as among AI-related roles. And then they have this chart where they looked at, let me pull this up. I need to pull this up. They had a bunch of other jobs that they looked at. So they had about a dozen categories, including design specialists, data visualization specialists, software engineers, prompt engineers, which is now kind of getting a little bit outdated. I don't think that's a thing anymore. Prompt engineers, data engineers, AI product owners, machine learning engineers, data architects, AI compliance specialists. I could go on, and translators being one of those categories that's called an AI-related role. So when we stumbled on this on this report, we thought, oh, well, that's news. McKinsey labels translators or translation as an AI related role, but then we found out, well, they've been doing this for 3 years. So still interesting is the trend. So they said instead of getting harder, it's getting easier to hire translators in their opinion. And this is based on a global survey of nearly 1,500 respondents, with 42% representing organizations with over $500 million in revenue. And around 55% of companies found hiring translators difficult in 2024, down from 70% in 2022. So there's an easing trend here. It is what it is. Head over to this piece of research done by our friends over at McKinsey.
I would say also they're not finding it super easy though, right? To hire these people. If you look at
super easy
on the graph, there's still, the question is share of respondents reporting difficulty in organizations hiring of AI related role as a percentage. So in 2024, it's more than 55% are saying there's some difficulty. Down from, I think, like 72 or something a couple of years ago.
Correct.
So it is getting easier, but it's still not still not super easy compared to some of the other categories of roles that they have on that list there.
Design specialists drop.
I find that surprising personally.
I find
it's not easy to hire a design
specialist. Any design specialist, please reach out. We're
and
accepting.
A data visualization specialist.
You're right. Oh my God. Yeah, we'd look at both those. So if any design specialists, freelancers, or data visualization specialists are, looking for work, let us know. Drop us a line. And because those are the two jobs that have eased the most, right? Cool. All right. Moving on to M&A and funding, mergers and acquisitions and funding. What happened there?
Yeah.
So that's your.
There's quite a lot to catch up on, obviously, since we've not spoken in this forum for 6 weeks. So, but I will try not to dwell too much on each individual story. So perhaps let's lead with TransPerfect, because they, since we last spoke, have announced not one but two new acquisitions. So that is on the one hand the acquisition of Technicolor Games. So that's the gaming division of Technicolor Group. And then most recently, a couple of days ago, they announced the acquisition of Blue Digital Group, which is a provider of digital media services. Pretty sizable.
Those are big.
So there you've got two acquisitions from TransPerfect, one in gaming and one in sort of, broadly speaking, media localization, cloud-based workflow automation, but centered on that sort of entertainment space. Then in language service provider land, we had in Israel, actually it's two mergers, the other two M&A stories, which is somewhat unusual, I think, for like a 50% ratio of mergers to acquisitions.
We got to put the M in the M&A because it's usually it's 98% A, and very, very little M.
Yeah. So in Israel, we had a story where two language service providers, one called Blue Lion and one called GATS, have merged. They have actually formed a new language service provider through the union, which is called TransNarrative. So this is a merger of, I think, GATS specializing in, they say, homeland security and international relations. So clients including US law firms, the Israeli Ministry of Defense, and then Blue Lion focusing more so on customers in the technology space. So they're coming together with those two different areas of expertise. And they said they'll be looking to partner with other LSPs with broader vertical coverage also. And then we had the other merger, which is over in Brazil. I think this was one we covered a while back, but it was two language service providers joining forces. That was Korn Translations and Zaum Langs. The two companies, I think, most pretty recently joined the Idle-Wildberg Group. And this is a group that's led by CEO Michael Marson, a former executive of CQ Fluency.
CQ Fluency. Was that
Sorensen?
Sorensen, right. Okay. That was sold to Sorensen.
That was a translation, a company that was sold a little while ago. Technically, I think the acquiring party was the private equity firm backing Sorensen, but effectively Sorensen.
Got it. What about funding? We have an interesting funding story. Funding.
Yeah, quite a few.
Teleperformance.
You like that one? Yeah, there was a few funding rounds. I enjoyed this story about Teleperformance, which is, of course, the parent company of LanguageLine, the interpreting leader. Teleperformance being based in France and LanguageLine being based in the US. But apparently they've joined a lineup of investors backing Sanas, a company called Sanas, which is an accent translator.
Finally, I can record this podcast without any Germanic traces. Yeah.
Potentially, yeah. But so the Teleperformance said they'd invested around $13 million. But the round itself, there were other investors also, the round itself amounted to $65 million.
So the pitch here is, Sanas's pitch is, the startup uses real-time accent modification to alleviate accent-related communication difficulties that can be more pronounced during phone conversations.
Yeah, I mean, that was my wording, but more or less.
Call center contact centers, people all
Yeah.
around the world calling people all around the world, and presumably,
I guess it's like some sort of accent filter. So neutralization of accents over the phone to make it more intelligible and make everybody understand each other that little bit more easily.
yeah,
Yeah.
makes sense. We're all going to sound like people coming from, I don't know, Boston, Philadelphia, California,
Or London.
or London.
No, nobody wants to
London.
sound like London.
No. People in London want to sound like people in London. People in London don't. I mean, there's many accents even within London.
This is true. Yeah.
I mean,
very true.
What's it called in East London? Man, how can I forget?
A Cockney.
That's right. All right. So Lingo.dev doesn't do accent related communication. They are going deep in the software localization problem and are fixing that. So what can you tell us about that?
As you said, very much focused on software localization. This is a company that's raised 4.2 million in a seed round. The company was founded in late 2023 under a different name, founded in Barcelona, and then moved to San Francisco after participating in Y Combinator's program, I think in 2024. So Y Combinator was part of the round that was led by a company called Initialized Capital, also with the participation of a number of angels. Interesting. I mean, I think it would take a lot to unpack exactly what it is, but they're saying it's an AI-powered localization engine, essentially helping developers go global. So, I mean, in its description, it's nothing revolutionary. There are other products that are sort of aiming to do much the same thing. But the co-founder and CEO said, what drives us is seeing how universally hated the current process is. So I think, it comes from a pain point that he probably has experienced in a previous lifetime. And then they also mentioned that the breakthrough, according to them, was creating what they call an AI localization engine that treats code as complex data structure, not just text. So I think it's, seeking to really understand what is included within code and what that means when it comes to localization.
All right. Well, happy to join the podcast. Happy to come to one of our conferences. So,
yeah.
All right. Yeah. One more. We have in AI dubbing, right? Dubformer.
Yeah.
Dubformer.
I like this one because it calls itself, I believe it's self-termed the Photoshop of AI dubbing.
Okay, that's like LingoDev says they're the Stripe.
That's what I was going to say. The other one says it was the Stripe of or Stripe for app localization. So it's like everyone used to describe themselves as the Uber of.
Yeah. And so now we have the Stripe for app localization and the Photoshop of AI dubbing.
It does help. Initially, like, what does that mean? But then when they go into a little bit of explanation, you think, oh, okay, now I can see what you mean by the Photoshop of AI dubbing. So
now, let me jump in.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to be the Canva of AI dubbing? Because Canva disrupted Photoshop. So you'd want to be the Canva of AI dubbing.
So you think the reference is a little bit outdated?
It's a little outdated. You should be the Canva of AI dubbing. Anyway.
Okay, well.
Dubformer.
Tell them to update their tagline.
Yep.
Per Florian's wisdom. So, let's talk a little bit about the technology. They are aiming to enhance media localization for TV, broadcast, and film, specifically using something they call emotion transfer technology. This captures acoustic characteristics, so things like echoes and reverberations, with the aim of enhancing the overall experience here. So I think this is where the Photoshop analogy comes in. They say they're aiming to get 100% controllability over AI voices, and especially emotions and intonation. Then they say our technology significantly reduces post-editing efforts, but some human input is still needed to adjust translation, pronunciation, and intonation, etc.
Now, this is very similar to Pinch, what Pinch spoke about at SlaterCon Remote, Pinch being a live AI interpreting company or real-time speech translation, whichever one you prefer. And Christian there spoke about the same thing at SlaterCon Remote. He said as well that, like, and to them it's even harder because it's live. It's not based on a file. So same thing, like emotion, intonation, making it natural. If you sound I don't know, sad or angry or kind of happy in a call, then the AI voice shouldn't just kind of neutralize all of
Be
this.
monotone. Yeah.
All right. So we got the Stripe for app localization funded. We got the Photoshop of AI dubbing funded, and all of them.
I can't remember if we said how much. That was $3.6 million US. So
3.6 million.
Yeah, probably definitely an early round. But I'm not sure if they're calling it seed or A or whatever.
Gets you a few developers, gets you a bit of go-to-market, gets you a better website, and hopefully gets you some better tech.
Good traction.
Very briefly, we had 6 major U.S. language industry associations issuing a joint statement. It's in the article there that we link to. We can also put it in the show notes. So that basically they were opposing Trump's executive orders, no surprise. So the executive order 14224, which, as we all know now, designated English as the official U.S. language. Just want to give a quick shout out here to the organization. So it's the ATA, it's the American Association of Interpreters and Translators in Education, the ALC, which we all know, the Certification Commission for Healthcare Interpreters, the National Association of Judiciary Interpreters and Translators, and the Registry of Interpreters for the Deaf. So, yeah, I mean, basically it's just stressing the impact on limited English speakers, importance of linguistic diversity, outlining the economic consequences, and then a call to action. The sort of coalition urges the Trump administration to rescind the new order and reinforce language access protections nationwide. I think they're also going to lobby in Washington, but yeah, it's probably slim chance that this is going to happen. They have a lot of other stuff on their plate, I guess, with all the stuff they're doing at the moment. So moving on, I just briefly want to talk about our new localization buyer survey, pluck out a few data points there. So very, very interesting survey. We published it just a week ago. We surveyed about 50 buyers, we surveyed exactly 50 buyers. And it was a very nuanced, large survey. So it's super interesting. You can get it from the website, or if you're a subscriber, of course. So just want to pluck out 2 or 3 data points. So one important one, we asked, what level of AI support do you currently need from your language service provider? And more than half said, hey, we need a strategic AI partner. We need an AI solution partner. Only 33% said no AI support needed. We have it kind of covered, right? This signals what we spoke about many times on the podcast. Like, buyers really are desperate for support, advice, consultancy on how to use all this fancy stuff that we keep talking about, for example, on this podcast, right? It's one thing to have this kind of new thing that you can sign up with an individual account. It's a totally different thing, to run this at scale at a major localization, in major localization operation workflow. So
definitely,
if you're on the vendor side, now is as good a time as any to go out and make sure that you can kind of integrate all those solutions for your buyers. Another interesting one, we basically asked, what do you do if you save money with AI in localization? And 55% said, well, we try to maintain the current spending levels, but almost 40% said we're going to reduce the spending on translation localization, with just a little bit, just a handful saying that they would actually increase spending. So maybe the maintaining might be a little bit also maybe in wishful thinking. Like, you say, well, I'm trying to keep my localization budget and I'm trying to do more with the same. But yeah, on the honest side, again, 40% said we're actually going to reduce that. And just one final point here. We asked about where do you see the greatest cost inefficiencies in your localization efforts, and almost 40% said inefficient use of AI and automation. So again, basically saying, I'm seeing it's inefficient, but I don't really know how to make it more efficient right now. What do I do about it, right? So yeah, head over to this report. Very, very interesting. Took us a while to put this together, but it's very fresh now, and so great data. Finally, closing on AI dubbing, not Dubformer, but AI dubbing. So Amazon feels it's now the right time to launch a pilot. So they're starting to, what is it? Hang on. So initially they focus on English and Latin American Spanish. They use lip sync tech. It's a limited pilot in scope. So currently it's limited to 12 licensed movies and series. And the pilot is specifically designed for content that would otherwise not remain undubbed. So
Not be dubbed. Yeah.
not be dubbed at all, right? So, well, you can choose. You can have the AI dubbing, or you can have something that's not dubbed
Do
at
we
all.
know which movies and series? I would like to check it out.
Yeah, I don't have Amazon Prime Video. You should.
do.
You do? Okay, well, go check
I do,
it out.
but I would like to know which. Well, yeah, I'd like to know which 12 because presumably there's quite a lot more. Let's see.
Let me see.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, it does mention a few. Maybe I'll do La Leyenda. Mi mamá
Yeah.
Laura. All right. Yeah.
All right, so
I'll
report back.
Do some consumer research.
Do some consumer research and report back. And just want to close on this, that we now have access to YouTube's AI dubbing functionality. And I think once you expressed interest, you're getting kind of auto added to it. And it's an opt-out now. So it's an opt-out. So once you've activated it, it'll automatically AI dub everything. And if you don't want it, you need to opt out of it. So when we upload this podcast, we actually need to click, nope, no AI dubbing, please. Because I'm not sure I would just kind of give the option to everybody to, listen to this in 12 whatever languages. I think it's about 6 or 7 now, and more are on the way, without any kind of human in the loop. But we'll definitely check the quality and come back and report on it. So yeah, basically this year is the year of AI dubs. All right, that wraps it for today. Again, encourage you to register for SlaterCon Remote. Fantastic conference coming up in 8.5 weeks. Look forward to seeing you there.